Hi, my name's Holly. This is my March check-in for my year of rereading. I am planning on trying to reread as many of my favorite series as I can this year. I had a very ambitious plan to do one series a month, but it's turned into something I want to enjoy and not rush myself through. It took me 3 months to read the first series that I wanted to get through. The first series that I was working on was the Artemis Fowl series by Owen Colfer. For anyone that doesn't know, this is about a child genius criminal mastermind who extorts fairies for gold, and then everything continues from there. By the end of February, I was halfway through The Lost Colony, which I believe is, yes, the 5th book in the series. I then completed book 6, The Time Paradox. I didn't remember most of it, so it was really fun going into it, remembering things as I read them and having that nostalgic feel to it. But at the same time, it almost felt kind of new and fresh because I really didn't remember what had happened in that book. And this is where it feels like the series really took off. Like the last 3 books directly impact each other. It's not as episodic as the earlier books, and we definitely get a lot more focus on the character growth of Artemis Fowl. I finished my favorite book in the series, and this still stands as my favorite, and that's the 7th book, which is the Atlantis Complex. The Atlantis Complex is my favorite because it's so character driven, and frankly it's fucking hilarious. It is so funny. I think it's the funniest one in the whole series. The humor is a little bit more mature, and then half of it is just Artemis Fowl is quite literally, you know, having a mental breakdown through this fairy mental illness. And mental illness isn't funny, but it was funny. Maybe it's insensitive. Mental illness rep. Well, it's a magical mental illness. I'm thinking through this now. I'm like, actually, is this a very insensitive book? Is this good mental illness rep? Okay. So thinking about the mental illness rep in the Atlantis Complex. I'm no expert. I don't know, I could be wrong. In my opinion, I think it's rather well done. There is a lot of poking fun and humor about the situation that Artemis finds himself in. He has a fairy mental illness, a magical mental illness. The humor comes not from all the other symptoms he's dealing with because of this, but because he ends up with a split personality. His alter ego named Orion is the polar opposite of him, so he's all emotion, he's romantic, he's kind of an idiot, a buffoon really, and Artemis Fowl is all cold, complex intellect. So the humor comes from the polar opposite coming out of Artemis Fowl's mouth, and then how all of his friends and comrades and such deal with that. I don't think at any point any of the characters don't take it seriously. It's not taken lightly. And in the end, there's no magical cure. He has to go to therapy. We see at the beginning of the last book, which is called The Last Guardian, which I also finished, by the way. At the beginning of the last book, he's been going to therapy, he's been getting better, he's had to work through it. There was no magical cure. To me, from, you know, the little bit I know, I think that's pretty good mental illness rep. The final book. Now the final book is where the whole series really comes together, as it should, but every book has been episodic, okay, up till this point. The last 3 definitely tie in a lot more. They feel a little less episodic, but they are still kind of episodic. And I think that's because, well, each book is plot driven. The series itself, the overarching plot, is character driven, which is interesting and I love. So, well, each novel has its own, you know, adventure. The overarching plot is the character development of Artemis Fowl from villain to hero, or at least to person with a conscience. And so not only is he growing up physically through the series, he's maturing emotionally and mentally and in just about every other way possible. And I think it was handled really, really well. If you want a really amazing, like I wouldn't put it Zuko level, you know, bad to good character growth, but it's pretty up there. I would put him just under Zuko for that kind of character growth. I had so much fun with the series. I can't believe I'm done. The last few books were especially fun to get into because I didn't remember most of what was going on. I didn't remember the ending of that, and I bawled my eyes out, and I remembered crying. Once I got to that part, I'm like, wait, I cried last time because, oh yeah, it's really sad, and I cried and like was tearing up, and it was this weird feeling because at the end of the book, like to the last page, I'm like, oh no, it's over. And you know that bittersweet feeling of finishing a series and realizing it's over, and then that's it. And then, you know, I was thinking like, but I felt this before, but on this page, about this series, about this book. And yet I got to go through it again. It wasn't as bitter. There was a lot more sweet because I realized I gave it a decade and I read it again and I enjoyed these books that I had loved before. And so it was a really nice feeling that I didn't remember so much at the ending, that I got to almost experience that feeling again of not wanting the series to end because then it's over. Even though I've experienced it before. It was such a cool feeling. I don't think I've ever reread a series, except for Harry Potter, to its completion after so long especially. It was just such a cool emotional experience to feel that bittersweetness again. Next series I plan on picking up is Harry Potter. I've reread that series before. It has been quite a while since I read the last 3 books, but I have reread it a lot. I am quite familiar with it, and while I'm sure there are things that will stick out that I've forgotten about, for the most part, I know where the plot goes, I remember the ending of all the books and what happens. I think that'll be a much more fuzzy, nostalgic experience than this was. Like, there was definitely a lot of nostalgia involved in the series, don't get me wrong. I don't think it'll be the same experience with Harry Potter as it was with this, because I did forget so much. One series out of the like dozen or so I wanted to read, done. After the 3rd month of the year, I'm probably not going to get through all the series this year, and that kind of hurts a bit because I don't want to do this again next year. I want to reread more next year for sure, but I don't want to spend my entire year doing this again. I will not be punishing myself by making myself finish this out if I don't finish this by the end of the year. With Artemis Fowl being completed, I get to move on to my next series, which is going to be Harry Potter. Now this series is really the first series that got me into reading. Like, I hated reading before this. I read other books. I went to school, my parents read books to me, and I like stories. I just hated reading myself. And so I had a teacher, 2 teachers actually. We had 2 teachers that year. 2. Our afternoon teacher, Mrs. B, what we're calling her. It's not what we called her in school, but for privacy. Mrs. B was this awesome British lady, and she loved reading. Her whole job at the school was reading and helping kids read. So I'm pretty sure it was her idea. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure it was her idea that in order to keep us quiet at snack time and at lunch, that they should read to us. So they started off reading Artemis Fowl. I got chickenpox, didn't get to finish it. I think I've told this story before. But the next book that I remember us moving on to was Harry Potter. I fell in love with the story. I was having so much fun with it. Like, I still remember sitting in class hearing it for the first time. So the first time I read Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, I had it read to me. The second book, same thing, it was read to us. We just loved it so much. We're like, read the next one, read the next one. So they did. And then the third book, when we finished the second book, I went home. See, my mom used to do daycare, and I had a friend, and she had left the third copy at my house. She didn't want it back, and I was so invested in the story that I actually went home. Me, who my parents used to like make me sit down with books and read them because they wanted to make sure I could read. I just hated it so much. Went and found this book and picked it up and started reading so that I had a head start on everyone in the class because I needed to know what was happening. The fourth book I already owned. You know why? Because there's a dragon on the cover, and I was really into dragons. And so I saw it in our Scholastic book order form, so it was like these like mail-away catalog things that went through the school, and you paid ahead of time, and the book got sent to you, and everyone got a book, and was so excited. Oh, I miss Scholastic book orders. So, like, if you don't know, like, it was this little catalog with all the new books from Scholastic, and you took it home, you showed your mom which one you wanted, and she wrote it down on the back, which one you wanted, and put some money in it, you gave it to your teacher sent them away, and then they ordered them in, and then the teacher would put it, like, wrapped in plastic on your desk, and you would have a brand new book. At that point, the fourth book was the latest book out. Fifth book was coming out a year or two after that. The Harry Potter movies were happening, like just coming out, they were just announced. Harry Potter mania was happening. And it's thanks to Harry Potter, it is thanks to Mrs. B, that I'm the reader I am today, that I'm sitting here in front of a camera talking about books after all these years. Today is March 31st. I'm filming a little bit early. I just want to say I did get started on The Philosopher's Stone. First book in the series. This copy was my first copy. It has the other dude on the back that apparently the cover artist had drawn just one of his buddies as a wizard, and they thought it was a character from the book, so they stuck him on the back of the book. He's even on the spine. As it turns out, it was not a character from the book. And look, it still says Scholastic. The pages are so yellow that some of the pages are falling apart and falling out a bit. This is a very well-loved book. On top of that, at one point, one of my sisters, I will not admit who, lost that book, and I thought it was gone forever. I was very upset. So for my birthday, they got me another copy, hardcover, matches the rest of my series, and this has been read, I think, once, that I know. It's definitely in much better condition than the other one. It's held together a lot better. We've got actual Dumbledore there. Then a couple years ago, they came out the house editions of this book as a 20-year anniversary thing. And I have the Hufflepuff one. I am a Hufflepuff. With the sprayed edges and stuff. I have never read this book. As beautiful as it is, as much as it's definitely like a collector thing and it's nostalgic and I'm a Hufflepuff, yay, why am I keeping this book that I have multiple copies of if I am not going to read it? It cannot just be for show. So I am also reading this one. And there's so many, like, they changed up some of the font in this, I noticed that, but there's also like extra stuff in here that I didn't know about. Like, there's the sorting quiz in here, and there's stuff about the house, so stuff about Hufflepuffs in here, and extra art, and it's really cute, and I really love this edition. I don't ever want to get rid of it. I have the illustrated edition. I have 4 copies of this book. But I mean the illustrated edition, if you've never flipped through it, it's gorgeous. So I've been flipping through the chapters I've read in the other books, and then reading a chapter in here. This one I have read before. My boyfriend is apparently going to be reading them with me, so we are going to... We were supposed to start at the same time. We were supposed to have a race to encourage me to read faster, and to see who was the fastest reader. I forgot about that. Going into April, I'm going to be moving on to Harry Potter. I have the next week off. Hopefully I can chug my way as quick as I can through those books in the next week and make use of my time. I've been really enjoying having this time off to read. Thank you, coronavirus. I had so much fun with Artemis Fowl. I'm glad that I'm finally done my first series, and I can't wait to see how it feels to go back to the wizarding world, how it feels to go through all the various copies of my books that I have, to just be back with Harry Potter. And also, I kind of want to see how the experience differs between a series that I know so well and a series that I forgot the ending of and got to relive my initial reaction over again. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you with an update at the end of April.